our team as a whole meets monthly, and each department has a monthly, and then we have a big team meeting. And I think growth is personal as well. All of us have grown personally as well as professionally. And I think putting all these, all of our little standards in place and implementing them and practicing them has helped us as an office grow as well.
This is Growth in Dentistry, a dental intelligence podcast where we ask the question, what does growth in dentistry look like to you? I'm Katie Polson, a dental hygienist and your host. Welcome to a special episode of Growth in Dentistry for our Practice Growth series. I'm Katie Polson.
I'm Adam Smith.
And we are excited again to be able to offer this series of this deep dive practice growth series to you. For those of you that haven't listened, the goal with these shows is to take some of our top performing practices that use our software and see how they do it. How do they get such great numbers? How do they tick? What makes them work? And hopefully you'll be able to glean something, more than one thing, I'm sure, from the great things that they're doing and see if you can implement that in your practice. So that being said, before we get started, I just wanted to invite those that are on Facebook to join our dental intelligence community. There's some great things happening in that little space. We have information on how to implement data better, on automation, and kind of come talk with one another there. For those of you that do listen to the show frequently, so grateful and thank you so much for doing that. If you wouldn't mind going and rating and reviewing this podcast, that helps a lot with getting other people just like you who are really great to come join our little show here and let us share our messages to them. If you are not a current customer and want to be one, the listeners to our show if you want to go to get.dentalintel.net/podcast, we're giving $50 to those that want to complete a demo. If you'll go to that link, and I'll make sure that link is in our show notes as well. And without further ado, we're so grateful to have Erin Fellars here from Great Oaks Dentistry. Is it New Braunfels? Did I say that right? New Braunfels, Texas. Okay.
Exactly right.
Good. Well, I just a little backstory. So we were at, I was at ADOM conference. And for those of you, first of all, I've had a chance to talk on a podcast a couple times now today that will come out in the future, but talking about how great that experiences was. So if you've got office managers or that haven't been, or you are an office manager and want to go, gosh, that was such a great conference. Yes. So great. But anyway, I was sitting at the booth and Erin came by and told me how much she loved dental intelligence. And I grabbed her and I said, tell me more. And I kind of accosted her really. And then I reached out to her. Well, actually I got home and I looked up her practice and I was like, holy crap, they know what they're doing. So I'm so glad that she's willing to spend an hour of her day with us today. Thank you so much for taking the time out. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. So Erin, tell us a little bit about yourself and how you ended up in dentistry, and then tell us a little bit about Great Oaks Dentistry and where you're located and the type of practice you are.
Sure. So a very long time ago, over 30 years ago, I saw an ad for dental assisting and I said, that sounds like fun. And here we are 30 years later, still in dentistry. It's a great career. I've raised my family this way. It's great hours, of course, and you get to help people. And I think that's huge. Our practice is located in the great state of Texas in New Braunfels. It's central, right between San Antonio and Austin. It's a great German town. So if you want to come to like a German fest, come on out.
Oh, and, really? That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, it's called Wurst Fest.
Worst fest.
Worst, because the sausage worst. Yeah.
Not Oktoberfest, Worst Fest.
Worst Fest. It's in November. Yeah.
Oh, really? That's cool. So just a general practice. But how big is the office? Like, how many operatories are you guys working out of?
We have 7 operatories. I have 2 dentists, 2 hygienists that aren't typically here same day. 1 day a week, they're both here. And we use them all. We use all the operatories.
They're all full. I know.
They're all full.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, And then I was going to ask special, like, do you have any, I mean, obviously you're doing general dentistry, but is there any sort of special procedures, anything that you guys kind of highlight or kind of focus on?
Yeah, so Dr. Warren really likes to focus on sleep apnea. He makes appliances for that, but we also have implemented Invisalign in our office and scanning. Instead of taking impressions, it speeds the process up a little bit. And they both restore implants. We don't place them, but we do restore. And most things are referred out, endodontics and some extractions, but most part, we're just a big family here.
That's cool.
So, yeah.
Awesome. So let's get into a little bit of the numbers and then we'll talk about how you guys have achieved those. So
Sure.
so when we talk about growth and we're talking about active patients per month, what I'm talking about for those of you that maybe have never used dental intelligence, or maybe those of you that do but don't know where to find it. So there's a new patient growth chart actually on our performance board that shows us exactly kind of how many patients you have that are coming in, how many new patients you have, how many patients you got to reactivate. And then we kind of subtract that. And then we subtract the patients that maybe fell off longer than 18 months since they've been in. And then also the ones that you've inactivated because they, asked, they moved or they, heaven forbid, died or whatever it is. So, so your growth month over month has been 50, 50 and then another 50. And like every month there's more and more growth. And with 2 doctors, that's pretty impressive. And so it tells me a lot about the fact that your practice not only is getting new patients, but that you are not, your back door is closed. That's kind of the term that we use, is that it's that you're keeping the patients that you worked so hard to get into your practice. So I want to talk a little bit about and get into that with you. So let's talk first about like how you get new patients in the door. What does that look like for Great Oaks Dentistry?
I would say a lot of it, Dr. Warren's been in practice 34 years. A lot of it's word of mouth. We really ask other patients for referrals. We want a patient just like them to come in. Also implementing Dr. Jimerson last summer, 2021, we ran some Whitening for Life Facebook ads to try to give her some new business. And then we also, a hygienist that we hired in January, her previous office closed and all her patients came with her. So it was a blessing. So all of that growth is a big blessing, but yes, but we do keep them. You're right. We follow up and we make sure there's no one leaves without an appointment. That's our goal.
That's awesome. So go ahead. You're good.
Yeah, we may have been about to ask the same question, but with those referrals, where is that done? Is that done in the chair? Is it done as they're checking out? Is it done as they're checking in? What's the process for that? I feel like I love asking this question because I've never talked to a dentist or an office manager that doesn't want more patient referrals.
Right.
So I always like to see what the process is when people are being successful with that. Sure.
I'd say most of the majority of those conversations are in the chair while they're building that relationship with the patient, telling them, they had a great, how was their visit? Do they know anyone else just like them? We love patients like that. And then if we build rapport with them up front, we always ask as well. And all our new patients go home with a referral card. It's called a smile card. And if they refer then they get a little gift. Awesome. So it's just keeping that revolving door going, and you can always use new patients, always.
So it just goes in their little bag with them.
Yes, but they do tell them what it is. You can shove it in the bag and
well, I mean, that's probably what I would have done because I'm a really great employee, but
you have to tell them, this is what this is for. Please refer your friends and family.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
A lot of people don't realize that that's a little bit of like a snowball effect, right? Like when you implement a referral program and ask for customer referrals, I see it not work a lot of times because they try it for a few months or like a couple weeks. They remember to do it for a little while, and they're like, oh, we haven't gotten any new patients from it yet. Okay, I guess we don't need to work on it as hard. But it's not until you've actually seen the people that have been referred and given the promotion to whoever you said you'd send whatever a gift to, and then they hear back from their friend like, wow, thank you so much for sending me there, I had a great experience, right? That's the full circle where now I'm like, oh, I can refer whoever I want to here, because now I've had like 3 or 4 people in a row that have just been thrilled, right? And if you, so it's not like, hey, we launched this and next month we got 45 patient referrals.
Right.
It's just not how
Right.
it works.
No.
But sounds like you've been doing it for a long time there, and it's just, they know if they refer someone, they're going to have a great experience. So
Yeah.
it's worth noting.
Yes.
Don't expect this to work overnight, but do expect that if you continue to work at it for a long time, it can be a big source of new patients.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's key.
Word of mouth marketing is a big deal in dentistry if done right, and obviously you guys are doing a great job at it. One of the things I mean, you had a new doctor come in and you mentioned that you kind of wanted to beef up your new patients to fill is it Dr. Jimerson? Is that their schedule? So
Yes.
let's get into a little bit to Facebook marketing, because it's not something that we've talked about here on the deep dive
Sure.
episodes. And I mean, not that I know anything about it, but Adam does. So maybe.
Purportedly.
What made you guys go that route? And then also, what do your Facebook campaigns look like? What is that? How'd you set it up?
We set it up to try to build a practice for her. Dr. Warren's been in practice so long, his patients want to probably stay with him until he retires, but I don't think he will. So
sounds like a typical dentist.
Yes, it was a good way to market to others inexpensively. And the ads run, it's a picture of her or it's a picture of both of them. And it says whitening, click here for whitening for life. And it kind of explains the program. We've had a lot of success with it. Patients come in, they get our complete total new patient experience. If they don't have anything pressing or present, then they get their bleach tray impressions taken right then. And then every time they come in, every 6 months, they get a refill syringe at no charge. As long as they're maintaining their recalls, that's the deal. They have to come in on time and keep their appointments, and then they can stay in the program. So,
really? Yes. Okay. Wow. I mean, that seems like a fairly good, I mean, as far as talking about return on investment, yes. Facebook ads run very low. And then, I mean, you've got an initial maybe $100 for a tray. And
if
then,
that, just supplies.
Right?
Yeah.
And
just
then,
supplies.
and manpower. And then, the syringes are super cheap. So yeah, that's awesome.
And then, and they all refer their friends as well. They want whitening too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I really like that. I have friends who, I have multiple friends actually who tell me they like just skip dentists and they go with whatever postcard is the referral that's in the mail. And I've always been a little bit gun shy with those. But it sounds like it's working in the fact that you have your parameters you set, like, you're looking for good patients. You're looking for the patients that are going to be good patients, that are going to stay, that are going to show up on time to their appointments. And so because oftentimes when you kind of do those quick turnaround campaigns, essentially you kind of can get, I mean, not the best patients that you want.
Sure.
But it sounds like it's worked really well. That's awesome. So, and you're just targeting your neighborhood or your area where you are. Yeah.
Right. And they are screened. We are in constant contact with them. And then we do actually have that phone call, and we go through our whole, ask them the right questions when they're on the phone and find out what's important to them and let them know a little bit more about our practice and what to expect when they get here. And they,
oh, okay.
Yeah. And then we can also screen, some of them are just looking for the whitening, of course.
Yeah.
But, we can build that trust once they're here and they remain a patient.
Awesome.
And I think that's actually an interesting promotional strategy, because it teaches them the behaviors that you're hoping that they learn, in terms of come every 6 months, be on time to your appointments, keep your appointments. And so rather than like Katie's saying, when you said like, oh, $7.99 to restore an implant, right? Or some discount along those lines, you get a price shopper who's just there because you offered them that, where the whitening for life value only comes if you're picturing yourself as a patient at the practice for a long time.
Correct.
Yeah. The other thing I like about that campaign is that the people that are more drawn to whitening will be cosmetic patients, or people looking to take care of their mouth. They want it to look good, and more than likely they'll have cosmetic procedures that they'll want to do. Which, if that's the kind of dentistry you want to do, that's a great campaign too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, that was a good little tangent, but I know that a lot of people are probably writing notes, and we're gonna see all sorts of Facebook campaigns. Don't target me, but
You're gonna flood the market. Yeah.
Just kidding. So tell me a little bit about, you said you screen them and then they come in. Tell us a little bit about the new patient experience in your practice, just walk us through it start to finish.
Sure. Starts on the phone. They call and we build that relationship first, find out what they're looking for, what's important to them. Ask them, one of my favorite questions is asking them what they liked best about their last practice, especially if they moved, not if they didn't like, but if they didn't like it, I also ask them, is there something I can avoid at our office? And a lot of them say, no one's ever asked me that. Or, what did you like about your last practice that we can replicate? Wow, you really want to know? Yes, I do. So I think those are important to know what's important to them, and especially the questions that you guys have on the dental intel, where it rates them, their fear level and what's important to them. We actually utilize that. A patient had a lot of fear. He said, I like music when I'm in the office. The hygienist she said, I made sure you had music because you mentioned that was important to you. And he was, impressed that we actually read what he wrote.
Yeah.
So I think building that relationship comes first. At the very end of the conversation, we may bring up, do you have insurance? We need to file for you. We've already built that rapport. I can't tell you how many we've talked into coming that know we're out of the network, but they want to come. So I think building that relationship has to come first, and then they can decide, do they see the value in coming or not. So
I love
it's a good way to screen them too.
Yes, I love that it's not about, let's not talk about how we're going to pay for it. Right now, we're going to talk about what the experience is that you want to get out of your oral health. And then we'll talk about how you're going to pay for it, regardless of whether we're in and out of network. I think that's really powerful.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What you're talking about is pretty advanced as far as like the sales process goes. It's what's referred to as like a needs audit or needs assessment. What are you looking for? What do you like? What do you dislike? What are your goals with your smile? Those types of things. That's a lot farther than I think most people go on the phone in the first experience. So I'd guess that you have a pretty decent show rate on new patient appointments. Katie could probably get me the actual numbers for it.
Yeah, I don't have that one written down, but your no-show rate is pretty low. So in general, yeah, really good. So after after you got off the phone with them and they then what's next, I guess?
So of course we send them their paperwork, let them know that it's coming so they can expect it. When they come in, we welcome to the practice. And then we in the back we do the 2D scan with the iTero machine to show them their mouth, and if they're a candidate or not for Invisalign. That's not really what we're looking for right now. Complete set of x-rays, complete exam Dr. Jimerson has a little more time with that. She sees all hers first, and Dr. Warren's patients run through the hygiene department, and they have a little time as well, but they all get top-notch 5-star service, and then they refer their friends. And I can't tell you how many said that's the best, most thorough experience they had. And I think it speaks volumes for our office.
Yeah. So so everyone in the practice is trained on the same process?
Yes.
Awesome.
And we actually, we meet monthly. So if we have to review the new patient process, and that's what we'll do. Depends on what, process we want to refine or review again. But everyone is trained on how that should look and how that patient should have an experience in our office.
That's awesome.
How long do they have when they come in for a new appointment?
My hygiene department has about 90 minutes, and Dr. Jimerson has 90 minutes to about 2 hours, depending on what's involved in the exam.
Okay.
Awesome.
It's interesting. Katie and I have done a lot of these, and we've started to see a correlation between offices that have really great retention, offices that have really great referral programs, and the time that they allot to their new patient visits and the things that they do in those new patient visits. The more time that they take to help the patient better understand their current situation and their goals for where they ideally will get to, the better the retention rates, the better the case acceptance percentages, and the better, this is the interesting part, the patient referral statistics for those practices as well. So it's been interesting. We didn't set out to try to discover this, but we asked the first 3 or 4 practices, what's the new patient experience like? And it's interesting because, Katie and I have both come from practices where you had an hour for a new patient appointment. And that's still fairly common, I would say. But now we're 10 of these deep for the SMB podcasts, or at least that I've been on with you. And every single one that's been out of the norm has had a longer allotted time for that new patient exam. So
yeah, it's pretty incredible. And I can almost tell at this point that that's how long you guys are taking, and that you're scanning everyone, and that you're taking new patient photos, and that you are, all of the questions that we're asking, then you're doing all of them, and it just shows in the data. So that's pretty awesome. And that it shows that your patients are sticking around, and then they're having the best experience, like you said, that they've ever had, right?
Yes.
That's pretty awesome. So how do metrics and reporting, I guess, help you in particular retain patients? Because I'm sure at some point you're using something to kind of evaluate if people are sticking around or not. So what do you guys do to do that?
Well, of course, we use dental intel.
Oh, but what numbers do you look at, I guess? What is helping you?
Well, honestly, I think the biggest report for that would be, who hasn't been in 18 months or more. Mm-hmm. They're going to reach out to them probably first for filling those. But with our no one leaves without an appointment, it gets a little harder to squeeze those people in. But there's room. I mean, if we have a spot, you're going to reach out right away. So I don't know if it's a specific number, but it's
something to keep your eye on.
Absolutely. And definitely keep on to that report so that we can keep those numbers in check.
So one thing that I noticed when I was in your guys' data is that, and I think it's really clever, but I want to know why you guys do it, is that you inactivate your patients after a certain amount of time. I can tell in that chart, you are inactivating people and keeping your records clean. I can tell. So why, what's the philosophy behind that? And when do you decide to inactivate someone?
You're probably looking mostly, your report might show when we left a dental insurance company.
That's right. and dental insurance company that we're not going to name,
but we did divorce them. So, and it's probably the best thing we did. So a lot of your data is probably that. But also of course, if they move or pass away, but after about 18 months, well, with COVID, it was a little different, but after 8 months originally, I guess so we just weren't contacting them after 18 months, or you reach out a last time and
then
guess what? They come back
Oh.
2-3 years later, like, oh, there's
okay.
Mrs. Jones. Haven't
Yeah.
seen her in a while. It's
Yeah.
great to see you again. So yeah, it's amazing how many patients come back, especially after COVID. They've been gone for a couple of years, but now they're all ready to come back. But yeah, some of the stats you're looking at are, I'm sure,
so
a lot of it.
let's talk about that. And I know
The
we talked about
divorce.
this. Yes, let's talk about your divorce. I love that you call it that. So I guess, so we'll talk about your collection and insurance, which it was obvious to me when you guys made that choice, because your AR has continued to improve. Not that it was bad before,
Right.
but your outstanding AR has dramatically improved since. And I could kind of tell exactly in your data when you decided to leave said insurance company.
Yes.
So, how did you guys make that decision to leave that insurance company? And because this is a hot topic. It's a hot button topic right now. Everybody's talking about it, and it's really nerve wracking. So what are kind of some of the ups and downs of kind of, leaving as dental insurance company?
Sure. You have to plan. You can't just do it. You have to plan ahead. So we spent a lot of time before it happened in person, speaking to patients and explaining what was going to happen and why it was going to happen. And we made phone calls months ahead of this divorce. And then when the divorce happened, we made sure everyone who was still on the schedule understood. And we told them that we're not willing to compromise our standard of care, and we weren't willing to allow them to dictate our standard of care. And they were all on our side. We had several patients call them and complain because we told them they're reimbursing lower and lower, and it's just not it's not a good thing for us. And we've had several patients stay, and during open enrollment, they're either going off of that and joining our membership plan, or they have other options and they're going to seek those out. But it was a no-brainer. It's just a matter of taking that leap. It was scary. I'd say it wasn't. We did lose a few, but I guarantee you they'll be back if their insurance changes.
So have you seen any downsides from it besides losing a few of them?
No, other than that, no. The freedom is just, you don't have to worry. Like this is what they're going to, I will say that a lot of the plans paid our fees, even out of network, which was a little surprising to us, but we know which ones now do and which ones don't. So we can help patients with that as well. Like they're still going to pay our fees. Why be in network when they're going to pay your fees? It's silly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I don't know if you have any other questions, Adam, but I feel like that's a really big thing for a lot of people right now. It's a scary thing. And I love how you talked about how it took a long time to get to your point where you were going to do that. I mean, we use metrics and reporting to kind of give you an idea of how many people you do have in network with somebody. If you want to, leave, it gives you an idea of how many patients you're at risk for losing. But I love that you, instead of, a lot of practices will just send an email and a letter,
Right.
which I'm sure you probably did, but you spent a lot of time talking to the people and explaining why you're making that decision. Because a lot of patients would just assume it's the dentist,
Right.
and not the insurance company.
Right. I really wanted them to see why and have that conversation with them face to face. I think it meant a lot more than just a letter that says, sorry, we're not taking your insurance. So,
yeah. So now that you still are accepting other insurances, still, but when you do that, you kind of have to really have a good process for collecting, from patients. And that means, kind of talk to me a little about what is your method for collecting from patients, and do you collect from patients the day of or offer external financing?
We collect the day of, especially when we went out of network, we had to learn how they were going to pay, if they're going to pay the patient, because there were a few that did that. And if it was a reduced cost and the patient decided to stay, what was their portion and expected? And we told them up front, this is how much you're going to owe that day, and or they're going to pay you, so pay us and you'll get reimbursed a lot quicker. So we did that. And then everyone else before they leave, they get an estimate before they're scheduled, and so they're comfortable with their financing, and we expect it at that time of service.
Okay. And do you guys offer external financing?
We do.
Okay.
If needed, we do have third-party financing available.
Okay. Cool. Yeah, I would imagine it's just gonna get oftentimes, and I'm not saying that there's pros and cons to being in and out or out of network with an
Sure.
insurance company, but it's pretty obvious that, like, at least when we're looking at AR data, and like AR days and how many days out you are, and how quickly you're getting paid, and how much money you're getting paid compared to what you're doing. It's so easy to tell if a patient is or practice is fee for service or not,
Right.
based off of the health of their collections. It's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for you guys and hope that it will continue to go well. Any other things that you want to touch on, Adam, before we leave collections? I want to get into treatment acceptance with them.
Yeah, just really quickly, what was it? Just the headache of the said insurance company that caused that decision, or typically that comes when you have more demand than you have capacity? And then it's an easy decision of, well, we don't have capacity for the demand that we have. Let's get rid of the biggest headache right now. What was that for your practice? That tipping point that finally said, all right, we're done with you guys?
I want to say probably the biggest part was looking what our lab fee was versus what we were getting back from the insurance company.
Mm-hmm.
And chair time, and we weren't making any money.
Okay.
Off of for example, for a crown, there's no
Yeah.
way you could make any money off of that based on their reimbursement amount. And and then costs went up substantially after COVID.
Mm-hmm.
And it just was it was time to do that.
Okay.
Yeah,
obviously that's one that I missed. Obviously, if you're not making money from providing the services, obviously
Right.
don't provide the services for that.
I think that
amount.
you're not alone in that. There's a lot of people that are feeling that same pinch and that same pressure
Sure.
right now. So, okay. So I want to touch a little bit on case acceptance. And this is probably just
Okay.
going to go back to the fact of the way that you guys treat your patients. But I just want to touch on it because it's important that you understand and the people listening understand how great your practice is at getting patients to say yes to treatment. So patient acceptance, your patient acceptance percentage is 85%, which means if you diagnose 4 quads of scaling, root planing, they accept one of them. So if you did that, 100 times that day, 85% of the people are going to accept at least one quad, right? That's a lot. That's a great percentage. Treatment dollar acceptance percentage is 46%. So out of all of the dollars, 46% of the dollars are being accepted, which is really big number. It's about 10% more than we see on average. And same day dollar treatment acceptance is 35%, which is 10% over as well. So that's
Awesome.
the money they say, yes, I'm going to do this today, or I'm going
Mhm.
to schedule in advance. And so it's clear to me that throughout the entire process, back in the chair, or when they're up front to schedule, or when you follow up with them, you're getting them on the schedule. And it's a pretty high acceptance rate. So what do you attribute that success to?
I attribute it mostly to educating the patient And then all of us are on the same page. The doctor calls it, hygienist says it again, pass off, they say it again. If I'm up front, I don't let them leave without an appointment. I just assume they're going to say yes and say, okay, when am I going to get you in for that? But they've already heard it from the doctor, the hygienist, the assistant passing it off, and then the front office. So it's just making sure they are aware of why they need it and the importance of it. If they don't, for some reason, schedule, then I'm going to call you next week. It's not, okay, see you later. No, I'm going to call you next Tuesday. Is that okay? And then I call them and, okay, you ready to schedule that? So it's just staying on top of that, I think. And a lot of it is, of course, education. And the more they hear it and the more that we're all on the same page with the treatment, I think that makes them understand. And of course, the use of our intraoral camera and x-rays and educating them on that in the imaging. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So taking the time to educate. And then also, what does the handoffs look like? What are you using to hand off? Are you there? What's the process look? Every practice hands off a little bit differently.
Sure.
What does that look like?
We have a route slip, of course. Whoever brings that patient up will say, Mrs. Jones had a great visit today. Here's what we did today. This is what doctor is thinking she needs next. And then sometimes they'll even say, remember that tooth doctor just talked to you about? That's the one that Erin's going to help you schedule right now. So it's just still assuming they're going to get this treatment. They're going to get this treatment. And they do. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it's obvious that people are saying yes again and again and again. And it's not sometimes we get these, when we get into treatment acceptance, it's easy for us to kind of, for maybe some people to feel like we're talking about like selling treatment.
right.
But really what we're trying to, it takes a lot of times of hearing. I mean, most likely if they hear that they need a root canal and a crown from the doctor,
Right.
that did not process.
Right.
I don't know how many times the doctor is left, and as a hygienist, I'm standing there in the operatory and they're like, what did he say? And
Yeah.
So I love that you've got that process and that handoff nailed down. It obviously is showing, and then your education as well, with your scanners and things like that. Again, it's one of those things that every time we ask this and you have a great case acceptance, it's always the same answers. It's awesome.
We should be promoting iTero scanners because
oh my gosh,
I think
you know what, Adam? I'm
says,
telling you, I have reached out to them and asked if they wanted to do some sort of something.
Yeah.
Hey, iTero, if you're listening, I have tried reaching out to you. Could you please call me back? That would be great.
You're not going to, because we're already promoting them for free.
I know, right?
That's right, for free. It
just
speaks
ask everyone.
volumes, though. The
Yeah.
imaging is incredible, and it really speaks volumes.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, it's so much easier to tell someone what they need when they can actually see it. Nobody looks
Sure.
inside their mouths.
Of course not.
Yeah, and it's on a big screen. I mean, you could talk me into doing anything if it looked like that. I mean, yeah.
Right.
I like one thing that you said. I think a lot of what you've said is like a lot of what these best practices that we've been interviewing are saying. There's a lot of overlap, and obviously it's because it's what works the best. But you mentioned one thing that I haven't heard anyone else bring up, and it's if they don't accept, you tell them a day that you're going to follow up with them. And like if you don't set that precedence, it's a little bit of an awkward call, right? Like,
Sure.
hey, you walked out without scheduling, or do you want to do that? Like,
Right.
your assumption is, hey, you want to do this. You maybe just need to talk to your spouse or whoever about it, or just, make the decision. I'm going to call you next Tuesday. How does that sound?
Right.
And then how do you make sure you don't forget about that?
Make a little, in our software, you can make a little sticky note. That's the easiest place because you know right where to look for it, and it's who you're going to follow up with. And there aren't too many on there because, I try not to let them leave without one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
If you get too many sticky notes, you got to go back and talk
That's
to them.
right.
Say,
Yeah.
hey, People aren't accepting anymore.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's awesome.
Okay.
So one of the things that we had talked about at ADOM, and the reason why I reached out to you initially was you said that you loved our patient engagement software, or formerly as Modento.
Yes.
And one of the things that I kind of want to talk to you a little bit about that is, well, first of all, there's a lot of practices right now that are looking to hire more people, or they're kind of short staffed right now. So, and I think automation can help a lot with that. But what does
Yes.
automation look like when we say we're like automation and using a software like engagement? Not necessarily that it needs to be not a
Right.
a advertisement for that, but what does automation look like in your practice?
It saves a lot of time. I will say in this age, patients want a text reminder. There are a few, Dr. Barton's been in practice 34 years. So he has his older generation that prefers the phone call. And that's fine. But so many people thank us for, oh, thanks for the text. It really helps me. They're so busy. They don't have time to answer the phone. They just want to see that text. There's a reminder. That saves us so much time. We don't have as many to call. There's a few, you have to call because just they're not going to remember the text. It's just, those patients. But it's a huge time saver as far as the paperwork's all sent to them. It's all completed. It's sent back before they get here. Met reminders, or you're due. I don't know how we do it without it at this point. We're so used to having it. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Such a big time saver. And you mentioned the older generation. So the dental practice that we owned, we purchased from a doctor that was retiring, and his patient base was a lot, around his age, to, I would say our majority of our patients were 50 to 80. I would very confidently say that. And they were manually making phone calls to every single person. And we were like, okay, this could ruffle some feathers because like it's an older generation, but
Right.
we're gonna implement text messaging, and we rolled it out, and we only heard probably maybe 10 people that were like, hey, can you still give me a phone call? Like everyone else was like, oh, the text is great. And so it was counterintuitive to what we thought was going to happen. So you're right. There are some people that will still request a phone call that are not like, but I mean, my wife's grandma, my kid's great grandma texts with us, and she's,
Yeah.
she's almost 90. So
Oh my gosh, I love
That's so
that.
cute.
That's
I
awesome.
think it's just a personal preference. Some of them just want to hear a voice. So,
Yes.
and absolutely do that for them for sure.
Yeah. And I love that just the patient. So do you have your consents, your new patient forms? All of the forms you're using
Yes.
engagement forms. Okay.
Yes, absolutely. That's been a huge help as well. Every assistant has their own basically little iPad or tablet. And as soon as the patient walks back, we're sending the consent form. We try to send it ahead. Most people they wait, don't do it. So while they're in the chair, they're sitting down, getting their blood pressure, temperature taken, whatever, they're signing their consent. So it's a huge time saver as well.
Yeah, I love that. It's one thing that I've really thought about a lot. I mean, like I've thought about how much of a time saver the new patient forms are, but the consent forms, when you have them sign them right there, right when they walk in the door, there's a lot of pressure for a lot of people to just sign it right away. And a lot of
Right.
people would rather have not, I would bet like a lot of people would rather have the time to sit there and read through that. Not that they're going to change anything. Maybe
Right.
they might have a question, right? But I bet that that's helped quite a bit too. I mean, right. Yeah. It takes a brave person to take the clipboard and actually sit down and just sort of sign it right there, because you don't want to like hold them up,
Right.
So yeah, really good.
Yes.
And so it sounds like, I mean, before implementing automation, it was quite sluggish and things took quite a bit more time.
Sure. It was on paper and then you had to scan it, and now it's auto feeds, goes right into the doc center. and
That's great.
it's easy.
Good. Okay. Well, I have one more question, and that's
Sure.
my most important question. Oh, actually, will you walk us through your no-show rate is like really low. Like when we talked about it a little bit earlier, like it's really low. How are you're just so good at explaining things. I bet it's just that, but how do you think, sorry, blah, blah, guys, it's 5:19 Salt Lake time. What, talk to us about how you achieve that low cancel, no-show rate.
I honestly think, of course, our messaging system is a huge help in that. It reminds them even prior to the day, people get busy and they forget. They also, we're training them now. They call and they're like, I can't come. I can't get you back in. So you sure you can't make it today? And I think it's those conversations you have to have. Of course, there's a few that can't, but tell them, look, we'll put you on our priority list. I'll never get in. Well, you might, just like you change your appointment today, someone else might. So I think it's just staying on top of them and making sure it's an absolute confirmation, and training them that you may not get back in next week if we don't keep this appointment. So make it important to them. And of course it's important to keep your appointments, but yes, I think that has a lot to do with it.
Yeah. That, and I mean, especially with these, with your new patients, you're setting the precedent from the very beginning, right? So they kind of know what to expect in your practice.
Yes.
Yeah.
And they want to come. Everybody wants to come to our office, right?
I love it. Everybody wants to come hang out with Erin. I want to come hang out with Erin.
Anytime. That's
awesome. Well, the last question we ask everyone is, what does growth in dentistry mean to you? And after 30 years, I'm excited to listen to your answer.
A lot has changed in 30 years. I started with hand dipping x-rays in a paper appointment book. So changing to a computer was not easy in the beginning, but I don't know how we did it before. I think growth in dentistry is more than just the office growing. Obviously we've grown. We have a new associate dentist last year. But I also think our team as a whole meets monthly, and each department has a monthly, and then we have a big team meeting. And I think growth is personal as well. All of us have grown personally as well as professionally. And I think putting all these, all of our little standards in place and implementing them and practicing them has helped us as an office grow as well.
Yeah, I love that. I can tell that your practice, I mean, it's such an exceptional practice, which is why we're sitting here talking to you, but I can tell that your practice cares about the people that work there, and your goal is to grow them personally as well, which makes a great place to work, right?
It does.
It makes it so that your hygienist brings all of her patients with her
to you.
Yes.
But if the team does well, then the patients want to be here as well, and it all just falls into place.
Yeah, really good. Well, Erin, thank you again so much for taking the time out, and at the end of a work day. It's a big ask for us, but I know that I've learned a lot. I'm sure Adam's learned a lot, and I'm sure that a lot of the people that are going to listen to this show are going to learn a lot too. So thank you so much. If they want to reach out to you, if they've got a question about one of your processes, or just say thanks, where can they reach you at?
Sure. Email here is manager@Great Oaks Dentists, that's plural.com.
Awesome.
And I'm happy to talk to anybody. I just, I've been in dentistry a long time. I love it, obviously.
Well, I'll make sure to add that link to our show notes. So thank you so much. This has been Growth in Dentistry and Dental Intelligence Podcast. Thank you to our marketing department for all their work on this show. I'm Katie Poulsen. Keep growing.